Welcome to the Neighborhood Law Center. I'm your host, Melvin Burris, and our guest is Charlene Green, manager of the Office of Human Rights in the city of Charlottesville. Welcome, Ms. Green.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Our topic today is understanding the Office of Human Rights. But before we get there, we're going to have Ms. Green give a little background about herself.
Certainly. I've been doing what I call anti-bias work now for probably about 25 plus years. My background is in education. I started out as a classroom teacher, and it's been in my graduate study work that I started to get into consulting with multicultural education, developing workshops, and focusing on human and civil rights. And so I got to work with some pretty interesting groups, a lot of it related to education, but I got to work with the FBI, the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., some groups basically across the country in terms of doing the work that I do. So I'm very glad to be here in Charlottesville.
So it looks like you had quite a bit of experience in this area.
I'd like to think so.
Okay, so let's get started now. Give us a little background on how the Office of Human Rights got started.
Certainly. It came out of the conversations about the Dialogue on Race. The Dialogue on Race was an initiative with the city that began in 2009. We put together numerous study groups that comprised people of 6 to 8 individuals in a group, and those folks committed to come together over a 6-week period to talk about issues related to race and what did they want the city of Charlottesville to do with that. And so there was a list of priorities that were developed, and one of those priorities was addressing issues of discrimination. And so we weren't sure what that exactly was going to look like, but it took some time to sort of work through that, and eventually City Council developed a human rights task force, and it was through that task force that a lot of good citizens who volunteered to be a part of that took the charge of asking and trying to answer 2 questions basically for the city. Does the city of Charlottesville need an Office of Human Rights or a Human Rights Commission? And if so, what are they going to do? What will be their basic responsibilities? And so that took place around 2012 as the work for the dialogue started to, it was still continuing, but there was this desire on a lot of the citizens to move to the next level. And so it was that work of the task force that took approximately 10 months, where they went on a couple of field trips. We went to Prince William County to see what their Human Rights Commission in their office was all about. And we went to Virginia Beach and saw what they did, primarily because they have 2 different ways of handling human rights issues. And it was through the help of Prince William County and modeling the city's ordinance off of what Prince William County had done that the Office of Human Rights and the Human Rights Commission was created. And that eventually happened in 2013. A lot of conversation within the city to make sure that what we have now was what the citizens wanted.
What is you mentioned the one down in Virginia Beach. What is the difference in the 2?
That's a great question because, and a lot of people don't know that there are only 6 offices of human rights in the state of Virginia. You've got Prince William County, Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Charlottesville, and Virginia Beach. And some people count the very small office for the state, which is in the Attorney General's office in Richmond. There used to be a standalone office for the Office of Human Rights for the state, but due to budget cuts in a different administration, it got pared down to 2 or 3 staff, in the Attorney General's office. And so those 2 to 3 people are responsible for all of the other complaints that potentially people across the state may have. But Prince William County, the difference between the two basic ways in which the commissions handle themselves, every one of those 6, with the exception of Virginia Beach, has enforcement power. So their work is driven by local ordinance. And Virginia Beach is just an education commission. So they do outreach to different groups in the community. They try to increase the awareness of being respectful and civil to each other. But if any citizen has a complaint in Virginia Beach, they don't have the capacity to address those. And so people in Virginia Beach would have to call the Richmond office for assistance if they felt like, or other local organizations that could potentially help them.
Okay,
So that's the big difference.
And it's interesting because throughout the state, if they don't have an Office of Human Rights, then they also would have to contact the Office of Human Rights at was the Attorney General's office?
The Attorney General's
which
office.
only has 2 investigators
Exactly.
to make a complaint.
Exactly.
And that's talking about people from Roanoke, Danville, Winchester,
All over the state.
all over the
All
state.
over the state,
Okay,
yeah.
So it's
Unless
quite a burden.
It is a burden. Unless you are in those 5 existing localities, you, or unless there are really, really strong nonprofits, or there's a state office located within some of the cities where you get potentially large amounts of complaints, such as in Virginia, in Newport News or in the Roanoke area, you are out of luck as a citizen.
So one of the goals, don't they? Tell us about the Association of Human Rights, because that's where some of this stuff can really start at.
Well, and there is a Virginia Association for Human Rights. It is the state association that is basically the support network for all of the different offices of human rights across the state. So Curtis Porter is the president of that organization. He's the chair of the Prince William County Human Rights Commission. And what we try to do as a body of people is support the legislation that each locality is trying to push through, either locally, or we come together as a group and try to figure out how can we push for instance to work on voting rights for people. Perhaps looking at the transgender laws that are bills that are trying to be approved by different legislators within the state of Virginia. So we try to support each other through the state association, and we try to also educate other folks and encourage other localities to create an Office of Human Rights to help their citizens.
Okay, and this is where we can start with the going to the legislature in Richmond and asking them or telling them we need a bigger office, state office, if in fact we want our citizens in other areas to take advantage of this human rights.
Right. So if there isn't strong opportunities to create offices of human rights in some of these other places, then the most logical step right now is to say we need to reestablish the former state Office of Human Rights with a significant staff so that they can address all of the issues that people across the state of Virginia who may not have access to assistance with a local Office of Human Rights. And so that's a budgetary issue. I think we would have support with this current administration. Who knows what's going to happen in a year or two when we have to vote on a new governor. but all of that is very political, unfortunately. But the bottom line is that you have people who have experiences of discrimination and they look for assistance. And I think it's important to make that as accessible to people as much as possible.
So one of the agendas should be moving forward is to let our legislators know
Definitely.
that we need to reestablish this Office of Human Rights in the state. And also there's election 2017 for governor, that when we have these meet the governor type events, fundraisers,
Yes.
we should be there telling him or asking him, what are you going to do about the Office of Human Rights, and what is your plan for that? So those are some great plans that we can work with. But let's go back to the city of Charlottesville and the
Sure.
Office of Human Rights. What do the Office of Human Rights do here for the citizens of Charlotte? And you notice I said the city of Charlottesville because it's inclusive to just the residents of Charlottesville.
Right. The ordinance that was created, which was approved by City Council in May of 2013, only affects any situation that occurs within the 10 square miles of the city of Charlottesville. So it doesn't matter if you're a resident. You could be visiting from a different county, a different country. If you have a situation of discrimination that occurred within the city limits, and it falls within the ordinance of the 8 protected classes or the 5 protected activities, then you can contact my office for assistance. And so those 8 protected classes involve age, disability, marital status, national origin, pregnancy or childbirth, and sort of like the medical condition of someone, race or skin color, religion, and or sex. And within the definition of sex, the city of Charlottesville expanded that definition to include gender identity, transgender status, or sexual orientation. Now, because of the laws and the Dillon Rule in the state of Virginia, not allowing state officials to enforce anything regarding those 3 areas, sexual orientation, transgender status, or gender identity, we can't address issues of discrimination in that enforcement level. But what we want to encourage people who may have experienced discrimination because of those reasons to come to the office and let us know, because what that tells us is that it's happening. Then we can share with City Council, and City Council can share with the state through the legislative packet that these are laws that need to be changed so that it protects every citizen and not just certain ones. And so those are the 8 protected classes that fall within the city's ordinance. And that falls actually within the Human Rights Act for the state of Virginia. That was enacted in 1986. And so everything that the city does, with the exception of that expanded definition of sex, is within the guidelines of the Human Rights Act for the state of Virginia.
Now, you spoke about activities.
Yes. There are 5 protected activities. We address issues related to credit, employment, housing, private education, and public accommodations. The reasons it's private education is because we're a small office. We're in a city of 48,000 people, and so we rely on the process that is currently in place federally to address issues of discrimination through the public school system. And so if anyone feels like they may have had a discriminatory incident occur with their child or with their family, there is a process that you go through locally for the city schools, and then if you feel like it hasn't addressed your concern, then there's a way to go through the U.S. Department of Education for assistance regarding discrimination.
Break now to pay our bills. This is the Neighborhood Law Center. I'm your host, Melvin Burris, and our guest is Charlene Green, manager of the Office of Human Rights, City of Charlottesville. And today's topic is understanding the Office of Human Rights. And we've got a great overview of the Office of Human Rights and its connections or relationship with the Human Rights Commission. So let's go into how many people file complaints with the Office of Human Rights.
I would say on average we get about 6 to 8 complaints a month, and that can range anywhere from people calling because they felt like they may have been denied access to a particular place, or to do a different, a particular activity, to issues related to employment. So it can cover all of the different areas within the ordinance. But what I find telling about the complaints and the types of calls that come into the office, a lot of them are not necessarily always within the city. And so you have people who call from Albemarle County or Greene or Nelson. I've gotten calls as far away as Rockingham County because people don't know who to contact locally within their area. And so I think they either do a Google search and the city of Charlottesville comes up, or somebody might be aware that the office exists, and so they'll say call Charlottesville. And I do my best to point them in the direction, if it's something that didn't occur in Charlottesville, to the nearest agency that can provide some assistance. And oftentimes that ends up being either the EEOC, the Equal Employment
For discrimination.
Opportunity Commission for Employment Discrimination, or Fair Housing Office, which for any housing, if there's a tenant concern for discrimination, and not necessarily with public housing, because because that's a federal program. There's a different process for public housing. But if you're in subsidized housing, or if you are in if you are renting from a private owner, then there is an opportunity to try to address your discriminatory situation through the Fair Housing Office, which is located in Richmond. But locally, the Piedmont Housing Office assists with the intake for the Fair Housing Office. So I'll refer people to those particular agencies, or if it occurred with the police department, for instance. Initially, I will recommend that somebody contact their local police department. And if it occurred with the city of Charlottesville, I have a great relationship with our local police department in addressing those kinds of issues.
Okay. And what happens once you gave us kind of a summary of the different complaints and what happens to them? When is it elevated up to the Human Rights Commission?
Well, when let's say an investigation occurs, or maybe it doesn't even rise to the level of an investigation. I sit down with somebody, and it's because the situation that occurred for them doesn't require an investigation, then I can say that it's not founded through the office. And if they want to appeal that concern, because we have had a situation where there was an incident, an individual felt like they experienced a situation of discrimination within the city. It was not founded as to be true. And so that person appealed that process. And so that appeal comes before the commission. And then the commission reviews the information. And then the commission can either agree with my finding, or they can disagree. And if the commission disagrees, then that means I would have to take that case back and review what I've done and investigate it further to make sure that I've covered all the bases that the commission says need to be covered. And then I would go back to the commission with that answer.
No. the complaints, they don't waive their rights to go to court if based
Oh,
on the
no,
finding.
no. It's all within a process of ensuring that if somebody has a concern and we do our best within the office to address it, that doesn't mean that they can't go somewhere else to get assistance. So we're just one strategy that an individual can use to make themselves feel whole.
Okay. So now tell us about the relationship of working in the community to try to educate our citizens residents on their rights and human.
Oh, and that's a
Human
great
rights.
question because the office and the commission, those are two pieces of what happens, and then the third big piece that is the commission and the office's responsibility is education and outreach, and oftentimes a lot of collaboration with other organizations. So as I mentioned earlier, I collaborate a lot with our police department to work on things such as the rights and responsibility booklet that educates people about what their rights are.
Okay.
And so this is, well, we put this together in cooperation with the police. They give it out to people they stop. We host forums, community forums, and provide this information to the community. So that's one way. We do different, we'll be collaborating soon with the Legal Aid Society on doing a session on tenants' rights. So we want people who are renters to know what their rights are and what can they do if they feel like they are not, that the landlord is not maintaining the safety of their home. How can they get assistance with that? And so we're working on with the Legal Aid Society on that. We work with the Department of Social Services. So we're in the process of planning some educational awareness events to let the community know what exactly does the Department of Social Services do, and how, if the community feels like they're not doing their job, then what can the Human Rights Commission do and the office do to help with some of those? Oftentimes it's just letting people know what it is they do to help with addressing some of the concerns.
Right.
So
One thing is you had the activities, and could you put them up to the screen so one at a time?
Sure. So this is the brochure that we give to individuals on protected activities, and it basically outlines what the office does.
Wonder if he can come in on that so we can get a shot of that.
Sure. So we have this, and then we also have
Must be
we have this particular. We have the protected classes. We have the human rights brochure on the Human Rights Commission. We also have so we have the brochure on the commission, and then we have the brochure on
filing
and complaint. We have the brochure on protected classes, and then we have the brochure on protected activities to describe for people the kinds of things that we do. So we, you can call our office, contact me, come in and get this information. Go to City Hall and the city manager's office and get this information anytime anyone wants.
Yeah, okay. That's good information because the information is there,
Yes.
and we encourage people to stop by the office to pick it up and see what their rights are and how they can get justice,
Yes.
we should say. Now, there's other activities we're doing. You have planned a calendar, I understand. And could you maybe kind of tell us what the events are coming up are?
Yes.
So if our audience, if they're interested in those activities can participate?
Right. Well, you can always go to our website to find out what the most updated activities are going to be. But
What is the website?
the website is charlottesville.org/human rights. And so you go to that website and it'll give you a menu of the community outreach events in our calendar. And you can even get a copy of the ordinance and find out that kind of information. But we're doing the Community Bridge Builders. One of that's coming back. That's an event that's going to occur on April 25th at Carver Recreation Center at 6:30. And the Community Bridge Builders Award was something that was developed in 2001 by the city to honor Drury Brown and his work and outreach to everyone in the community. He was a big civil rights advocate. And so people were nominated, and some were chosen to have their name placed on the Memorial Bridge, which is the West Main Street Bridge between the east side and the west side of the community. And so we're bringing that back because it ended in 2006. So that's a very, very important event that's occurring for the city, and that's through the Office of Human Rights. We're participating in the Reentry Resource Fair, which is occurring on April 30th from 10 to 1 at Carver Recreation Center. And that's an opportunity for people who have recently been released from incarceration, who are trying to get their lives back together and are looking for work, looking for a place to live, looking for resources so that they can get themselves organized to to re-enter society. So that we're participating in that particular event. There are, like I said, the Tenants' Right, the Daughters of Zion Cemetery. They are in May. They're going to be doing the unveiling of the new historic marker there. So that'll take place on May 29th at 2 p.m. And so we encourage people to participate in that as well.
Okay. Looks like we're running out of time.
Certainly.
I'm just wondering if you could leave the audience with your email address and telephone number so they can get back in contact with you if they have any questions.
If anyone has any questions at all about what the office does or what I do, you can call me at 434-970-3023, or you can email me at humanrights@charlottesville.org.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here with us and giving us all that information that hopefully it'll educate our listeners of their rights,
Yes.
Human rights. I'm your host, Melvin Burris. This has been the Neighborhood Law Center. I just want to remind you that we're also on the website at neighborhoodlawcenter.com. And if you go to YouTube, you can go to Neighborhood Law Center. And we'll see you next week. Again, this show was our guest, Charlene Green, the Office of Human Rights, City of Charlottesville. And the topic today is understanding the Office of Human Rights. And thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll see you next week. Peace and God bless.